Have you ever wondered what you're going to do with your meat? I'm going to show you how.
Brisket's so succulent, your tongue will be doing the backstroking or your drool.
One of the key things when cooking brisket, whether it be in a pellet grill, offset smoker, charcoal, in your oven, etc., is the prep.
Middle-aged men will know you want to select a brisket that's floppy and has plenty of give.
You want to find one that has a small fat cut and is quite soft to the touch. Right, so we'll call this the underside of the brisket. We've got the flat at this end, we've got the point up at that end. We're just going to look for any of this really hard fat. We're going to get rid of that, any of the silver skin, and clean this right up. And if we have some really thin edges along the side, we're just going to cut them straight out as they will overcook during the smoke. So we're not going to waste that. We're going to separate these into hard fat bags and then into the trim bags, and we can mince that up and turn it into sausages, for example. So you have a piece of silver skin like this. Just put your knife straight underneath and then glide it along. Come back. Just like that. Now just repeat that process. With your hard fat, we're going to trim that right off. Now as you can see, the lean side of the meat has a lot less intramuscular fat. You can see right here. On the top, we're going to leave this fat cap to about 1/2 to 1 centimeter thick. Just a nice even coverage. This one's actually pretty good. We'll just trim up the edges. Now moving on to the point end, we have a huge chunk of fat here. We're just going to basically scallop it out, just trim that down, and then we'll just do a little bit on top. Now on the point end, because there's a lot of intramuscular fat, we can't afford to trim this right down, so we don't really have to give it much protection. So what we're looking for here is aerodynamics. Now that you've taken off that fat, you've left the fat cap over the flat, so the smoke and the heat travels over it, and you don't get lots of little burnt, cracky bits. So just clean up those edges, make sure it's nice and smooth, relatively smooth across the point end and the decal. Then we're ready to bang on some seasoning. All right, we're gonna bang that into the freezer, and when it gets about half frozen, we're gonna pop that through the mincer. Otherwise, if you've got a knife, you can chop it up finely. So to help the seasoning stick to the piece of meat, because we've obviously been drying so we could trim it up, we're gonna use some sriracha. Oh, my tip for young players, we're gonna start with the underneath side of the brisket, binder, season, and then we're gonna flip it over. So the last side to be seasoned is gonna be the top side.
Give your meat a thorough rubbing. I love banging on a coffee-based rub.
Now when you're seasoning, you want to season from sort of that 40 to 60 centimeter in height, and that'll give you a nice even coverage across the top. And then when you're moving to the edges, you have your hands and you sort of guide it in, so it'll push the seasoning back into the side so you don't have as much wastage.
Then you pretty much be the Pied Piper of barbecue seasoning. For God's sake, pat, don't rub, save that for the bedroom.
And if you're unsure about the quantity of seasoning, once you get a nice even coverage, you want to be able to just see the ruby red parts of the meat through, and then we can start on the other side.
Respect your meat. If you forgot the whole video, just remember, trim to aerodynamic, don't throw away your trim, and season from up high.